Mulder's latest mission is to find a prehistoric, lake-dwelling sea monster. Convinced it's the cause of local deaths, his tenacity lands him into deep discussion
and self-examination as Scully questions his motivations. Will he find the monster? Even if he does, will that be good enough for him?
This is not happening.
You sound bitter, Dr. Faraday.
Of course I'm bitter. The man wrote off 3 years of carefully collected data in a 2-hour inspection, which doesn't mean I plotted his demise. Well, that is what you were suggesting, isn't it?
Well, aside from having a motive, you don't seem too upset by any of this.
You expect me to cry for one man when entire species are perched on the brink of extinction?
Dr. Faraday, you know the wildlife in and around this lake just about as well as anybody, don't you?
I'd say that's accurate.
Are you aware of any indigenous species that's capable of attacking a human being?
Yes. Another human being.
Aside from that, is there a creature that comes to mind?
Has anyone ever told you two you have a great problem coming to the point?
Okay, then. In your work, have you come across any evidence that lends support to the existence of this creature they call Big Blue?
See, this is what always happens. This is how it starts.
What?
The deflection, sleight of hand. See, whenever an issue requires any real thought, any serious mental effort, people turn to UFOs and sea serpents and Sasquatch. Afternoon talk shows and tabloid TV. They've reduced our attention span to the length of a soundbite so that soon our ability to think will be as extinct as the Ranus phennocephala frog.
I'll take that rambling diatribe to mean that you don't believe in the existence of such a creature.
I'm not even going to grace that statement with a reply.
A prehistoric animal living in a lake is not without precedent. Last August, they pulled a bull shark from Lake Onata in Massachusetts.
An anomaly, which proves nothing. It only serves as fodder for pseudoscientists with nothing better to do than chase fairy tales.
Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. This is Not Happening, another X-Files podcast. I'm your host, Mike, and with me, as always, Andrew. How you doing?
I'm great, Mike. I am really great. I am sea great.
Sea great?
Yeah, sea monster great.
Sea monster great.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not sure that's a thing, but fair enough.
If we try hard enough, it will be.
So, sea monster great. Sea great.
That's right.
All right. I'll just go with it.
Go with it. It's a thing. Yeah.
I'll go with it. All right. We are here to discuss Quagmire, one of everyone's favorite episodes, I think. I think universally this is one of the show's top episodes.
I think it is.
How do you feel so far about this one?
I think it's the Darren Morgan episode that wasn't. It just has a lot of DNA from that particular kind of script, but it's Kim Newton who wrote it, and Kim Manners who directed it. So it's the Kim and Kim show.
If I'm not mistaken, Darren Morgan helped sculpt it, and I believe
not credited.
He wrote some things.
That would make sense if it was true, but it is not credited that way. And I would be surprised if you're David Duchovny and you mention in passing your show idea to Howard Gordon and he turns it into a script, you credit David Duchovny. So in the same vein, if you're Darren Morgan, who I would not believe that he wasn't somehow involved in this show, it would be very generous of him not to be credited in some way, if that was the case.
Fair enough. I will investigate that further later, but I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. So, yeah, it is quite an episode, and as people will attest, it is a shipper delight episode. We can't escape it as much as some of us may want to. Yeah,
well, it's why I suggested that you lead the show in this episode.
No, that's not at all what happened.
No.
No.
It's because I loved Avatar so much that you decided to take Quagmire.
It is. What happened was you gave me the choice of either or, and I chose this one, and you said, of course you would.
And you
Which I still contest.
And you're like, that's the sound you made.
Pretty much.
Of this show, I think something that's worth discussing is that it is one of the very few episodes that is written by a female writer. The X-Files writing room was notoriously male-dominated. And according to an interview with Kim Newton, or at least some comments that she sent to an article, it was a very competitive environment where writers would try and outdo one another. You pretty much had to work on your own, and you would bring things to Chris. You talk over ideas, you sort of deal with him one-on-one, and that all the women that were ever enlisted to write for the X-Files were relatively new in comparison to the male writers who were hired. And they usually left after only 1 year working there, often not being invited back. And I think that's a real shame because you asked me how I felt about this episode, so I'm going to turn it back to that and say that I think that there's some great dialogue from Scully's point of view. Like, she's given a lot to work with here, and it feels authentic in a way that some of the things that she has to say do not. So it's one of my favorite episodes from that point of view.
Overall, it's not to go into deep or final thoughts, but yeah, I mean, this is one of the positive episodes for the show, and you know, the fact that it was a female writer on staff, that should say something. And for Kim Newton, I wish it had earned her more clout, because I would have liked to see something else.
I would have liked to see a lot more from her. I would have liked her to be the Darren Morgan story, you know, that she's got a bunch of Kim Newton scripts in the show. I think it would have only been amazing.
Well, what do you say we head out to the woods, Andrew? We head out to the woods and we tackle this case.
Shall we bring our little dog with us?
If you must.
Well, I must.
Apparently, I know this was last minute, but
apparently my little dog farts a lot, and they smell.
Oh, man.
So nobody's going to miss him when he doesn't come back from this trip.
Fair enough. We open. A frog sits perched on a log at a lake. This is Hovelman's Lake, and we are in Striker's Cove. Two men are having a somewhat antagonistic exchange. The scientist, Dr. Faraday, is relaying the statistics of this particular species of frog. Their dwindling numbers have now depleted to just a couple hundred adults. He wants them looked after and placed on the endangered species list. The other man, Dr. Bailey, is here for the inspection, the routineness of it all, and he is less than impressed with Faraday's assertion, claiming frog populations all over the globe are falling. He says you can't put them all on the endangered species list. The two men go their separate ways, with Faraday calling back to his opponent that he can't turn his back on nature, or she will turn it back on you. We follow Bailey to his jeep some ways away, still near the edge of the lake. He notices his pager's gone. Mark Snow's music falls away, and the sounds of the forest ever present. As he traces his steps back, he finds a pager in some grass nearby. He picks it up, and with furious flapping of startled birds, the sounds of the forest drop away to a seemingly impossible silence. Bailey notices this and perks up, scanning the nearby forest. With his back turned to the water, the camera lurks towards him. Suddenly, he is attacked by something, falls to the ground. We never see what has a hold of his leg, but as he screams in terror, he claws at the dirt to get away. The creature drags him to the lake, and his hand continues to reach for anything to save his life, as it is the last thing to be pulled underneath the water. Oh, and a froggy hops away. Boop.
That's my favorite part of that scene. The opening with the frog, closing with a frog.
Yes.
And it's turning its back on him.
Yeah. Nature will turn its back on you.
That's right.
I'll get this out of the way. Dr. Faraday was the shift change floor manager in our town.
Yes, that's where I saw him before. He's got a bit more hair in this episode, though. I think he was a bit more crew cut guy in our town.
And Bailey, we will see him again, and I think one more time. But
yeah. But when the pager came through and it had a message, what do you think was written on there?
Do you want Coke or Diet Coke with your meal?
I think it was
you're getting lunch.
I think it was you're about to be eaten by an alligator.
Yeah. Look out.
Look behind you.
Yeah. Why would you turn your back on a lake?
Run. All the things that could have been there.
Is Dr. Faraday still complaining?
Yeah,
you son of a bitch. Why would you just walk away?
I like the scene. It's a nice opener. It's a bit, and this has it's showing its true colors very quickly. It has a feel of War of the Cophrophages with the exterminator and client dialogue at the beginning. It's very wordy, and then it goes into an action sequence. So it has that DNA for me in the opening segment.
Fair enough.
You know, it's a bit high-minded, and then it turns into something wacky and violent with the frog at the end.
Yeah, very much so. By the time Dr. Bailey is dragged away, it feels like there's going to be a lightheartedness to this episode, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
After the credits, we come to County Road 33 in Rigdon, Georgia. Mulder and Scully drive along discussing the case. We see them pass a billboard. Tall, and on it is painted, "What's older than the hills?" with a large green mound sitting in some water. Inside the vehicle is, of course, Queequeg, and in Mulder's haste to get out there, Scully had no time to find proper accommodations for her pet, and she'll be damned, Andrew, if she puts him in a kennel.
She put Queequeg on the plane. I guess it's a small enough dog it could sit in your lap in the 90s.
Maybe they drove the whole way.
No, she says I got in a plane and then we drove here. I mean, they're in Georgia on a Saturday. They can't drive there from Washington.
Sure, they can.
They can. They just hitched a ride with the alien and boom, they're there.
Yep, absolutely, right there.
Yeah. On board so far. Everything checks out.
The two go back and forth about Bailey's disappearance. It's apparently not the only disappearance in recent memory around these parts. A Boy Scout leader as well went to use the bathroom, and he was never seen again. Much to Scully's dismay, Mulder clearly is omitting some facts about this case. She has no idea why Mulder would be so interested in it. She questions if he thinks a serial killer is at large, and Mulder retorts, the operative word being large. She ponders this for a moment, and as she does, she sees a billboard asking, "What's bigger than the sky?" Now there are 2 green mounds on this billboard. She asks him point blank what he's leaving out. Multiple missing persons cases are not that unheard of. Why does this one warrant our involvement? As she asks the frustrated question, he simply points. It's the last of the spaced out billboards, and she is unimpressed. As they drive past the camera, now outside, we get a good look at the final billboard. Big Blue, the Southern Serpent. Spot him at Hovelman's Lake. The painted hills have now shown themselves to be the back of a large sea creature like Nessie. Protruding from the side of the billboard is a long neck curled around into an angry serpent face. Mulder's shifty, Andrew.
Yeah, he is.
He knew she would never go for this case, so he omitted the important facts.
This is a great setup because it's almost meta in the sense that the Monsters of the Week episodes, the non-mythology episodes, they all have a hook of some kind. How do the agents get involved? It's either it's been a case they've been working on for months, or somebody reaches out to them for assistance, or, it's tangentially related to Mulder's quest for, the truth and aliens and all the rest of it. But when they go way off the reservation and they have to really, figure a way to connect the dots that they would be involved, sometimes it's a bit tenuous. And this is one of those cases where it's like, we're investing the Loch Ness Monster. Why are we here? Well, he's the Forestry Service is a federal service and
federal
he's missing,
agent,
so therefore we're involved. It's like, no, we're not. We're here for another reason. Okay, it's something a bit more X-Files related.
Have I told you you would have come? Would you have come?
But it's beginning. It's setting the stage for what's going to be a pivotal conversation later about why Mulder is driven for the things that he is driven for. And right now, the only answer
and what are
is
his motivations? From here, we go to the Ecology Sciences Lab at Hovelman's Lake. The agents are questioning Dr. Faraday, who is perturbed, to say the least. Scully's going over their last encounter and rightly points out that he was the last person to see him alive. He was also having an argument with the man. Faraday freely admits that he's no fan of Dr. Bailey. The man wrote off 3 years of data in a 2-hour inspection. It's here he correctly predicts that she's trying to make him a suspect in his disappearance, but he's really not afraid to continue speaking his disdain for the man. Mulder chimes in, asserting Faraday knows the wildlife around these parts as well as anyone, and asks if he knows any animal that could attack a human being. Faraday says yes, and with hate on his lips, he says, another human being.
Oh, Faraday, I like you.
Mulder begins to clarify, but Faraday cuts him off. Has anyone ever told you you have a great problem coming to the point? It's here Mulder drops the smoke screen and says, fine. Have you seen or found anything that lends credence to the idea of this creature they call Big Blue? And Andrew, this is the last thing Faraday wanted to hear. This is the final straw for this conversation.
Oh, you're one of them.
Yeah, he ends the interrogation with a rambling persecution of everything Mulder believes in by saying, anytime something takes real mental effort, we turn to the fantastical, UFOs and sea creatures. Mulder tries to save face and quotes another case of a prehistoric creature being pulled from a lake in Massachusetts, which Faraday waves away as well. It proves nothing and is just the type of thing for pseudoscientists to cling to. Burn, Mulder.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you would
scathing review.
You would hope that a scientist would be a bit more open-minded, but he's not that kind of scientist.
He deals strictly in what's in front of his face.
Maybe he's licked a few frogs in his time, you know. He has not had enough doors of perception blown wide open.
Well, heading to a local bait shop now, the agents discuss the case. On the roof of this little shack is a inflatable Big Blue shifting in the wind.
I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome. How much did they pay for that? Just to get that done.
Or can you buy it? I imagine you probably have to make it.
Yeah.
It's great.
I mean, well, it's obviously custom made, that's my point. But
lake creatures have been reported for centuries in dozens of countries. From the monsters in Loch Ness and Shield to the Ogopogo in Lake Okanagan.
And Lake Champlain, Lagerflat, Iceland.
Sounds like you know a little something about the subject.
I did as a kid, but then I grew up and became a scientist.
Well, some very grown-up cryptozoologists believe that it could be an evolutionary throwback, possibly prehistoric.
An aquatic dinosaur.
A plesiosaur, actually. Though, admittedly, there's not a lot of hard evidence to back that up.
You know why? Because those creatures don't exist, Mulder. They're folk tales born out of some collective fear of the unknown.
Well, how many folk tales do you know that could eat a Boy Scout leader and a biologist?
And Scully has no retort for that. That's true.
It is.
So something ate these people. Just like Jurassic Park, I want to say. When the Pirates of the Caribbean breaks down, the pirates don't eat the tourists.
But so far, they're just missing people.
Yep.
We haven't had any bodies arrive so far.
No bodies yet.
I think he's quick to jump to the eating people part.
Right. Yeah, I think he really wants to believe, and because there happens to be a local legend about a giant sea creature, he's like, these people must be dead.
Yeah.
It's the sea monster. We enter one of my favorite locations on the show, honestly. As you know, for me, a big draw oftentimes is aesthetics. There's something about like a forest preserve shop or a souvenir shop on a gloomy, rainy day. I can smell this place just watching this.
Yeah, totally. And you can believe that a guy like Ted is the proprietor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Extremely reminiscent of old hiking days and field trips. But
yeah,
Ted Bertram is the owner. He's a heavy-set guy with a trucker cap that no one could forget. Show us your bobbers.
So good.
Oh, boy.
So 12 years old.
Yeah. They ask him for help with directions, to which he offers a map, $250 plus Uncle Sam, to Mulder's distaste. They make pleasantries and discuss why they're here in town. The man seems to wave the rumors away, claiming to have heard stories for years, and Mulder fills in the gap. Big Blue? The shop owner then lays a story on them about when he was young, fishing with his father. They heard a wailing commotion from clear across the lake. Apparently, a cow had escaped and was drinking by the lake when Big Blue came up and snatched her off the shore. Scully keys in on him. You must sell a lot of t-shirts with that story. The man doesn't deny needing to make a living, as he grins, but he levels with them and says people need to look at all the evidence for themselves and decide what's real. It's at this moment, Mulder's best friend that he didn't know he had comes in. Good old Ansel. He's a smaller fellow and dons a fisher's hat, a plaid shirt, and a fisher's vest. A large camera strap around his neck with a camera on it. Oh boy, he is ready to go.
He is.
He is going to catch a sight. Actually, he's got 2 cameras, if I'm not mistaken.
He does have 2 cameras. Yep.
This guy's adorable.
Yeah, I like him. Named, of course, after Ansel Adams, classic mid-century photographer.
Yeah. The owner tells him why the agents are there, the unsolved mystery of the disappearances, to which Ansel laughs. Since when is it a mystery? Mulder asks if he himself has seen Big Blue, to which he admits he hasn't, but he aims to, Andrew.
He does.
He is determined this thing exists and he will snap a shot of it, and Scully has officially found herself surrounded by 3 Mulders. A place she never wanted to be.
This is her worst day ever.
For the love of God, get me out of this place.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go walk the dog.
I can do a lot of dog walking now.
Outside on a nearby dock, a fisherman baits a hook. He casts it into the lake and shortly catches something. It's heavy though, and as he fights to lock his line, he pulls it in slowly, and he sees something horrific rise to the surface. A boot. He bursts into the bait shop and calls for the sheriff. He's got a floater. Mulder and Scully rush out to see what he's talking about, and right next to the dock floats a pair of legs. Just a pair of legs, Andrew. In jeans with their boots. As they investigate, they find he has a wallet. It's the scout leader, Scott Woolsey. Woosley. Is it Woosley or
Woolsey?
Woolsey?
He doesn't actually have an actor playing him. He's just a set of legs attached by a groin. The lower half, if you will.
The lower, yes. So yes, it's the scout leader, Scott Woosley. Scully notes his fly's undone and says it's common for people who may have been drinking to go relieve themselves. They lose their balance and fall in. It could be a case of accidental drowning. This exact thing happened, Andrew, a couple of weeks ago in Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken.
No kidding.
I'm not even kidding.
Oh my God.
There was, unfortunately, a college student. I think he was thrown out of a bar for, I think the story said that he had too much.
Mm.
There's video of him walking out of the bar and then he went missing. And then like a week later, they found his body in the river.
You know,
so that sucks. Unfortunately.
Ironically enough, I think there, maybe not in Tennessee, but in some places where I live, I think the legislation, or at least the law works this way. The bar owner can be held responsible for that death. Because you basically,
I would
get
imagine
somebody
there
liquored
has to be
up.
Something
Like
I
you're
haven't looked into
responsible
the
for
case.
serving them to a point where they are still able to care for themselves. If you overserve them, then
Right.
you're taking on some responsibility for their well-being.
Mm-hmm. If I'm not mistaken, the article I read said he only had 1 drink. So I don't know why they would have thrown him out. I don't know. I forget the guy's name. It's a sad story, but
It is.
I don't understand why the bar owner would have tossed him out.
Maybe
for 1
because
drink.
they realized this guy came in hammered, managed to get a
that's
drink,
possible
and
too.
now we don't want to have the liability of
Right.
serving him.
That
he was
could
drunk
be
when
true.
he got here.
So Mulder draws attention to the fact the complete upper body is gone. Scully tries to combat this with the fact that fish have been munching on him since his death, which I have to say is pretty flimsy.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty flimsy. There would be plenty of bone material along with shreds of meat if it's just fish munching on this guy.
Well, with Mulder
The
saying
upper portion of his body would not be gone.
with Mulder saying, would they eat half and save the rest for later? That's such a comeback.
I feel bad for her in this moment because that's not the explanation that's going to work for anyone, I don't think. But
That's a part of this episode where essentially the obviousness of the situation is punching you in the face. And you're like,
she's
hanging
on to science. She's hanging on to logic.
Cannot be that inflatable monster up there. I refuse to believe it is that thing, because that is ludicrous.
Yeah. We transition scenes here to that evening. Using day for night technique, they shoot a wide angle of the lake as a crane flies over, the wings licking the water as it flaps. Oh. Suddenly, a monstrous reptilian foot smushes into the mud on a bank of the lake. Another step, and then another, until the camera tracks upwards to show the shop owner in his trademark hat wiping his forehead. He has concocted some custom boots that look like your cliche three-toed reptile feet. He hears something in the distance, but keeps going. He gets stuck and tries to free himself, and as he does, he hears water sloshing. He looks back and begins screaming bloody murder as he falls to the ground, struggling. He is dragged away forcefully into the night. The next morning, it's a crime scene. Ansel is there as a photographer with Mulder. He recognizes his hat, and he's giddy. Look at the size of these tracks. Scully, walking Queequeg, comes in with Sheriff Lance Hint. He sends Ansel to check the woods just to get rid of him. He obliges, but not without his prediction that today's the day, Sheriff, he's gonna get him. Sheriff Hint asks Mulder about him wanting to close the lake. New information to the viewers as well. So Mulder is taking these disappearances as he's like, we need to close the lake because people are just dropping like flies.
Imagine that.
I don't know if that's appropriate. At this point, I don't know if it's appropriate. It might be, but the way they explain the lake, it's pretty big. So how do you feel about the jump to close the lake already?
Well, I think what they're doing is they're setting up the Jaws parallel. I mean, that is where the story is going to go. It is very
Absolutely.
much a delightful parody. So they need to start introducing that idea of there's a disaster brewing, we've got to close the lake, and there's resistance to that, such similar to how there was in the movie. In this case, it's because it's not for tourist dollars. It's simply because it's a lot of work and they don't want to do it.
And we'll get to it here in a second, but the sheriff is convinced this is simply a case of people getting reckless on the lake, resulting in death.
Yep. Yep.
And on a lake this size, you're going to have 8 or 9 deaths in a season. Mulder argues they've got 3 in as many weeks. So the conversation then comes down to manpower, 48 miles of shoreline and 4 deputies to work with. So I can understand Hint's position here. You can't just put out an order and expect it to be taken care of. You got to have the manpower to do it.
I wanted to say with Ted making the big blue tracks, which I think is great. First of all, it's just a really slick idea. Like this guy, he knows that this is where he makes his money. So he's totally complicit in making this work. But the forest going quiet again, setting up that as our device for when the forest goes quiet, the bad guy is there. Nice touch and well done. And I legitimately felt bad that he was, he's going to get killed because there's no escaping that, especially when his foot gets stuck.
Poor guy. He seemed nice enough, but he had to go for the plot to move forward. He's not a recurring extra in the show, but I want to mention the sheriff is Chris Ellis.
Yeah.
Fantastic supporting actor. He's never really the main character in anything, but he's in a lot of stuff. I always enjoy seeing him. One of my favorite roles is the rough and tough guy in My Cousin Vinny, who tries to get away with scamming Vinny. And he's also in a couple episodes of Burn Notice, too, as Mom's boyfriend.
You're right. Yes. Having just done the rewatch of Burn Notice, that is correct. Is he in any more X-Files episodes, or is this the only time we see him?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so
I'll
either.
double check, but I don't think so.
You're double checking your memory, of course. You're quickly rewatching every episode.
Double
to see if
check
he
my
jumps
memory.
out. Yeah. That is how you do it, of course.
Here.
You don't devolve yourself to looking at the
Scanning
internet.
files. I'm scanning my brain matter files. 1 wrinkle, 2 wrinkle.
Boy, your brain files are downloading pretty slowly, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of stuff going on. I am certain this is the only episode he's in.
Pretty sure.
I scanned everything. I did a quick sweep, and we should be good.
You looked upwards and to the left into your memory, and there's something there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Deep in. I scoured the whole thing, scraped the bottom. Nothing in there. This is his only episode. As we said, 48 miles of shoreline and 4 deputies to work with. To close a lake like this, the sheriff says you need the National Guard and irrefutable proof, which is something Mulder doesn't have.
Yeah.
And it's at this moment that Queequeg gets the jump on Scully and chases something into the tree line. She chases after the leash to find one of Bertram's reptile boots stuck in the mud. There's your lake monster, guys. It's all a hoax, she says. And just when she thinks she's got Mulder on the ropes, he brushes a finger across the boot line and lifts a bloody finger. But what happened to the hoaxster? She just can't win.
You know who can't win is Queequeg. This dog has a death wish.
He does. No sense of danger at all.
I will argue, and I'm not a dog owner. You are, I think.
I am. This is.
She's a bad doggy mommy.
She is.
Because
you need to hold on to that leash.
You cannot let the dog get away from you, especially if it's an uncontrollable animal. You know, you need to.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to get into it, but I do not like when people walk their dogs with the leash there, because it's like, I know you trust your dog, but
it's an animal.
It's an animal. It's going to do whatever it wants. And what if I'm a psycho? You know, you're not able to protect him from me. So,
yeah, exactly. So. No, I'm with you. This is one of 2 times she loses the leash due to not paying attention. I'm like, just hold it. It's not that hard.
Well, it's one
He's
or
a
2
Pomeranian.
times.
He's not a Great Dane.
Well, exactly. She's got 0 body strength. This is the setup, obviously, for what will happen later. You know, the setup here is Queequeg gets away and is fine. So when he gets away later, you're put into this false sense of security. But we'll get to that later.
Look at you, Andrew, trying to be all poetic about this. All right, we got
Kim Newton's script. She's amazing.
She's doing great.
Yeah.
In another section of the lake sits some stoners on a pier. Their van is adorned with band logos from all ages. It's the 2 remaining goofballs from War of the Copperphages. This time, however, they are testing the hallucinogenic properties of toads, Andrew. Taking up the role of the boy who died in War of the Copperphages, the other stoner, the white-haired stoner, speaks of how licking the toad is supposed to swing the doors of perception wide open, much like the guy who died in the other episode did.
That was methane gas. This is
methane.
Toad back sweat.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah.
They're not even sure if this is appropriately a toad, but whatever. He does it anyway. A third member of the stoner crew pops up in the water nearby. He's snorkeling. This causes the white-haired stoner to drop his toad, and they get into the mellowest argument you've ever heard. Suddenly, the snorkeler begins flailing helplessly and calling for help as he is thrashed around, much like Ace Ventura.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, he's dragged under, followed by a trail of crimson water. His friends look on in horror as their friend's head pops up, motionless, and then it rolls onto its side. It's just the head.
Mm.
Oh boy. This episode is chock full of cheesy gore, and it's amazing.
And in this moment especially, and especially because it's characters from War of the Copperphages, this is Darren Morgan. This is the invisible hand, or maybe even the visible hand of Darren Morgan.
This is what I'm telling you. I'm almost positive he had something to do with this episode, like rewrites or just kind of cleaning it up. But yeah. I would not be surprised if he injected them into this.
Yeah. Darren, can I use your stoners for my episode? Sure, go for it.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, if he is indeed a part of this episode, which I do believe he is.
I would believe it, yeah.
He's mopping up, right?
Mm.
He's taking the elements he brought into the show, and this is getting rid of them. He's getting rid of Queequeg, and he's getting rid of the stoners. This is the last time we'll see them until season 10. So
yeah, but he's not really getting rid of them so much.
Not getting rid. I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean like he got rid of Queequeg because, you know, it's his storyline. Scully can only have a dog in his stories. So since he's not going to be on the show anymore, he's taking him out.
I'm taking my doggy with me.
I'm taking my dog.
We're going over to Millennium.
Yes. That would be amazing if Queequeg showed up in
Millennium.
Lance Henriksen's family has a dog.
Yeah, he's the harbinger of the apocalypse. Queequeg just comes out of the grave.
Crossfading into yet another crime scene, the sheriff questions the stoners, but they are unhelpful due to their drug-addled minds. He comes over to the agents to look at the head and get a report from Scully. She says without proper autopsy, it's hard to be sure, but it does look like it could be propeller damage from a boat. And the sheriff does the whole arm thing.
Mm-hmm.
I told you, essentially, as he walks away to take care of more business. The agents argue some more. She claims it looks like rush hour, although I gotta say, Andrew,
Not a lot of boats on that water.
there are exactly 3 boats on that lake, and as soon as they start walking, the rest of the lake is clear.
Yeah.
So they obviously didn't get the rush hour feel.
Well,
with the scene.
if you panned the camera to the left, Mike, you would have seen 40 boats. It was just coincidental.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Yeah.
So they started walking the wrong direction. Gotcha.
Exactly.
This is a designated boating area.
Yeah, but 20 feet from shore and twice in one day?
Mulder, look at it out there. It's like rush hour. I think you're ignoring the obvious.
What about Ted Bertram?
For all we know, he stepped in something and bled into those funny shoes of his. He's probably so embarrassed right now that he doesn't even want to show his face.
Oh, is that the psychological approach to crime solving? He's too embarrassed?
Regardless of what I believe, there's no hard evidence that it's what you believe.
Down the lake at another location, Ansel is setting out his latest contraption. An inner tube, Andrew, with a net over it and a pile of raw meat.
Super smart.
Yeah, this is interesting. He's anchored it just off shoreline, deep enough for the large animal to swim nearby, and he's setting up his camera. It's the ultimate booby trap for him. Stupid Blue will never suspect it. In classic X-Files methodology, he turns away from the buoy to check on other equipment. We see the inner tube get tugged a little from underneath, and he doesn't notice. When he turns back, he sees something swimming towards the shore. He fumbles excitedly with his camera, goes to snap a picture, but unfortunately the lens cap is still on.
That's happening.
In his haste to remove it, yeah, that's gotta suck, man. In his haste to remove it, he finds himself out of time and is attacked, snapping pictures as he screams for help, unsuccessfully.
I will say, very accurate camera stuff going on there.
Yeah.
He's got, I think, well, they're either Canon or Nikons. I would even venture that perhaps Nikons with attached motor drives, which means they do, make that noise of the film advancing. But what I liked most was the camera that he's setting up at the beginning, which is a Hasselblad 500C. It's a square format camera. It would make beautiful pictures of Big Blue if Big Blue were to appear. And I think they've used that camera specifically because they've chosen his name as Ansel, because Ansel Adams' camera from the mid-50s was classically a Hasselblad 500. So,
Would you say it was an Anselblad?
An Anselblad for sure. Yeah.
For sure. We fade now to Mulder picking up his camera with a latex glove. Another crime scene. He hands off the camera to a deputy to get the role developed and begins chastising the sheriff. All this driving from crime scene to crime scene is giving me highway hypnosis. Frustrated, the sheriff, who is attempting to toss a large hook to grapple the inner tube back to shore, explains it isn't that easy. Again, manpower. Plus, he's not convinced at all this is an aquatic menace. Suddenly, he is yanked into the water by something that grabbed onto the long rope. It takes him several yards into the lake, but he is able to free himself and swim back to the shore in a panic. Everyone checks on him. He staggers to his feet with the aid of the agents. Something brushed up against him, and whatever it was big. Without further prompting from Mulder, he grabs one of his deputies and commands him to close the lake. He wants them to contact state police, wildlife, fish, and game. This is an emergency situation. The agents exchange a look like shit just got real.
Very Jaws. That's exactly the same deal there, right? Like it takes a giant tragedy to suddenly awaken the authorities. I do want to ask though, and we saw this with the other, with the snorkeler who is killed.
Mm-hmm.
If our villain in the end is revealed to be an alligator, and probably quite a large alligator, does it have the strength to do what it does to the snorkeler and also to the big sheriff? It looks a little fantastical the way that they get pulled bodily into the water.
Well, and that's the conclusion you have to draw. Were they killed by this alligator, or was it truly the monster that we see at the end?
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that.
So I choose to believe it's the monster, and the alligator was just in the wrong place at the wrong time with Mulder.
Yeah. Okay.
But that being said, alligators and crocodiles are tough sons of bitches. And if they catch you, your chances of survival are going to be low. I don't know necessarily that they could just drag you with great ease into the water, but I wouldn't be surprised. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know once they get you into that death roll, you're fucked.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I'm choosing to believe that the snorkeler and the sheriff were pulled under by Big Blue, and the alligator is responsible for the other attacks.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. That night at the motel, Mulder's inspecting Ansel's new photographs, none of which, Andrew, are of any use in the commotion of the attack.
It's such a shame.
Yeah. I love the pictures of his face. Like,
yeah.
I think there's a callback to that with Mulder and Scully meet the Weir monster in season 10 because Mulder has problems with his phone camera.
Oh, no.
And I think there are some pictures like that in there too. But Mulder eventually lands on one that could be a tooth, I guess. Mm. But when we see it, it's the most cartoon-looking, blurry white triangle.
It's nothing. Yeah.
He's reaching. He's reaching. Totally. This is not a tooth.
It is not definitive.
No. Having had enough, Scully decides to take Queequeg out for a potty break while Mulder continues. Outside, the little guy sniffs around but doesn't do anything. He keys in on something in the trees, but Scully refuses to go over there. His insistence leads her to check the trees more thoroughly from her current location. In her distracted state, once again, Queequeg manages to dash off and yank the leash from her grasp. He takes off into the woods, and she pursues in fear. When she manages to catch up to the leash, Queequeg is still further in. She can't see him, but he incessantly barks at something. And then we hear a short, high-pitched squealing, and then silence. After a moment, the clasp slowly comes back as Scully hits the retract button, but there's no Queequeg. She looks out into the distance in absolute terror and sadness of her loss. Commercial.
Gotta say, 100% believable that Queequeg would act this way.
Yeah.
To his own detriment. But realistically, I believe it, which is the worst part.
Yeah, poor Queequeg. I mean, he did it to himself.
He did.
I think she's also a bad dog owner, so we won't harp on it too much, but she does not know how to hang on to a leash.
And it's not like this is a Doberman, this is a little tiny dog. This is not be hard, but I mean, this was what the script was setting us up for. The Queequeg was a little playing too close to the fire, and he got burned.
Yep.
I got to say, though, Mulder and Scully pretty lax about their security, considering the danger they're pursuing. They know what's out there, and yet they're like, I'm going to take Queequeg for a walk in the dark with my flashlight.
Yeah. Back in the motel, Scully holds Queequeg's collar, zoning out. Mulder apologizes about Queequeg, and she just simply nods. Immediately, he goes back into the photos. They're pictures of the lake, not the monster. These are locations where it's been sighted, and 5 years ago, the sightings were in the center of the lake. Slowly, the creature sightings have come closer to the shore until now, where they're practically on it. Scully, coming to a bit, asks him to repeat the last part. And when Mulder asks for clarification, she says, "The part where you said you were sorry." Dismissing this, he then asks if she can drive a boat. Oh boy.
It's a sad scene. I mean, to Gillian Anderson's credit, she plays it absolutely perfectly.
Yeah.
But it's so Mulder too, right? Like, he does not like Queequeg. It's quite clear that he doesn't care being done.
He doesn't really offer support for his partner. He's all too ready to get back into the case and the photos. He has no time for this.
So you lost your smelly farty dog, eh?
Oh, that sucks. Hey, so check out this photo.
Can you drive a boat? Just always curious to know.
Boat. And from there, we cut to Scully at the wheel of a boat. They've rented it on the lake.
have to assume time has passed because she gets right back in the saddle after that, you know.
It's the same night. That would be my guess, is that Queequeg bit it at like 7 o'clock in the evening. It was dark, and maybe this is like 10.
Perfect time to go out hunting an animal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy? Okay.
We see the sonar picture beeping with a few dotted images nearby. She isn't sure what to think. She asks Mulder if he really expects to find this thing. Trying to read a map, he ignores her question. He knows the difference between expectation and hope. Seek and ye shall find, Scully. After some adorable conversation, the sonar begins beeping quicker. There's a shape much larger than anything else coming directly towards them. Here be monsters, Mulder jokes. The large blip collides with their boat and water sprays into the ship. Picking herself up off the ground, Scully grabs at the radio to call for Mayday. There's another crash. The agents are thrown once more to the ground. Mulder grabs for life vests and they abandon the ship. Standing on a nicely placed large rock, they watch what remains of the boat sink slowly underneath the waterline. Mulder suggests at this point swimming to shore, but when they shine their lantern around, there's only blackness and water visible. And it is here, Andrew, that shippers pop some popcorn, snuggle up with their significant other under a blanket, and watch as they do hand stuff to each other.
Yes, a very big deal.
SOTR and chill.
I have a very quick question, possibly with an answer attached. Yes. Mike, why does Big Blue attack the boat?
Because it's there.
That is the
answer.
And
you can't have a sea creature episode and have a boat and not sink it.
Again, we're leaning heavy into Jaws at this point.
Jaws,
so why not? Yeah, I'm in.
And you expect it to. It's one of those things where, all right, we're hunting the sea monster. It's late at night. No one else is around. We got to sink a boat. The Patricia Ray.
Yeah. So you know what this reminds me of? And they'll sort of come into this territory again with Detour.
Mm-hmm.
How they have the loosest of plans to deal with this
into this situation.
Yeah. It's like, what was your plan when you rented a boat to go out in the water and find a sea creature? Did you bring a net? Did you bring a harpoon?
We both have pistols.
We have pistols. Like,
that's about it.
When we discuss this in Detour, it's like, what was your plan when you went out there with no supplies and, you maybe had handcuffs, I suppose, but there's no plan. And there's no plan here.
That was him, Scully. That was Big Blue.
So what if it was? What are we doing here?
What do you mean, what are we doing here?
What are you hoping to accomplish?
Scully, so many of the things that we investigate are so intangible, but this creature, it exists within the specific earthly confines of this lake. And I want to find it.
What for?
You're a scientist. Why do you ask that question? I mean, it would be a miraculous discovery. It could revolutionize evolutionary biological thinking.
Is that really the reason why? You know when you showed me those pictures that the photographer took? You want to know what I really saw in them?
The tooth?
No, you. That man is your future. Listening only to himself, hoping to catch a glimpse of the truth for who knows what reason.
Well, I did read in his journals that he was hoping to live off the copyright fees from a genuine Big Blue photo.
Well, as dumb as it sounds, at least it's a legitimate reason.
You don't think my reasons are legitimate?
Well, just sometimes I just can't figure them out.
Hey, Scully, do you think you could ever cannibalize someone? I mean, if you really had to.
Well, as much as the very idea is abhorrent to me, I suppose under certain conditions, a living entity is practically conditioned to perform whatever extreme measures are necessary to ensure its survival. I suppose I'm no different.
You've lost some weight recently, haven't you?
Yeah, actually, I have. Thanks.
But it is amazing what some animals will do to guarantee the continuation of the species, isn't it? I mean, a creature one of this size must have adapted its behavior over the years to minimize its chances of being seen by its only predator, us. Just coming closer to shore for its prey must be an act of desperation on its part.
Poor Queequeg.
Why did you name the dog Queequeg?
It was the name of the harpoonist in Moby Dick. My father used to read to me from Moby Dick when I was a little girl, and I called him Ahab, and he called me Starbuck. So I named my dog Queequeg. It's funny, I just realized something.
It's a bizarre name for a dog, huh?
No. How much you're like Ahab. You're so consumed by your personal vengeance against life, whether it be its inherent cruelties or its mysteries, that everything takes on a warped significance to fit your megalomaniacal cosmology.
Scully, are you coming on to me?
It's just the truth or a white whale. What difference does it make? I mean, both obsessions are impossible to capture, and trying to do so will only leave you dead along with everyone else you bring with you. You know, Mulder, you are Ahab.
You know, it's interesting you should say that because I've always wanted a peg leg. It's a boyhood thing I never grew out of. No, I'm not being flippant. I mean, I've given this a lot of thought. If you have a peg leg or hooks for hands, you know, maybe it's enough to simply carry on living, you know, bravely facing life with your disability. It's heroic just to survive, but without these things, you're actually expected to make something of your life, achieve something, earn a raise, wear a necktie. So if anything, I'm actually the antithesis of Ahab, because if I did have a peg leg, I'd quite possibly be more happy and more content and not feel the need to chase after these creatures of the unknown.
And that's not flippant?
No. Flippant is my favorite line from Moby Dick. Hell is an idea first born on an undigested apple dumpling. Yeah?
I mean, we have a wonderful scene here between the two agents, and I would say infrequently we are treated to these sit-downs and honesty sessions between them.
Mm.
But this one is a scene that tugs at the heartstrings for shippers everywhere. To be fair, it is a good bit. You know, they take some time to get real with each other about life and Mulder's obsession with the truth, something that really continues to drive him. But the general question for Scully is, when will it ever be enough? Will he ever be satisfied? And I think there's some really great stuff about Mulder being compared to Ahab. What did you make of this conversation? It goes for a while, and it's in depth. There are some jokes, but you know, these two agents are taking this opportunity of no escape right now. So they're like, let's just get to know each other and talk about what's driving us. How did this sit with you as a viewer and fan of the show?
Well, as you know, I hate the show, so obviously it's a terrible scene. It was great. It makes me lament that Kim Newton didn't get more opportunities to write, because I think this is her contribution to the show, basically, is this dialogue. And again, the assumption is that it's her script. It wasn't, you know, she wasn't a beard for Darren Morgan or anything. I think this is right. It's got a feel of authenticity to it, which I love. So give actors great material and they will make legendary scenes. And of course, this is one. I also think that they probably built this episode around this moment and worked backwards.
Oh, yeah.
They basically thought, we need a moment for them to connect. You know, we need a moment for them to have time where they can just be trapped together in each other's company and not have anything else that they can do. And then what are they going to talk about? So they have an opportunity for them to dissect a few things. The most important being, why on earth is Mulder obsessed with pretty much everything? I mean, the obvious answer is because the show forces him to be. You know, he is cast in this role, therefore he does that. But they're able to peel back the onion layers a little bit to give us some more stuff to serve that end. It's not just about, you know, we're going to have a Monster of the Week episode, and here's the tenuous reason why he is here and dragging Scully along with him. No, he is legitimately, this is his character. He is pursuing the unknown because it needs to be pursued. His motivation is to uncover that which is unknown, to solve a mystery. And it's commendable. I like it. I like that they had the opportunity to do it. It probably didn't score them any points with Fox because they're like, well, we had the action scene. Aren't they going to have a sex scene now? I mean, they're on an island together. They gotta take their clothes off and keep warm.
They're on the smallest of islands.
Yeah, but no, they don't devolve into that. They give us something that we really like as opposed to just the cheap tawdry stuff. So that's my take on it.
What I like about it is the fact that it is one of those moves for the show that permanently progresses their character relationship. These two agents, we never really get the moments of them sitting and talking and understanding each other. So this one dives into that a little bit, and I feel like there is a not a noticeable shift in how the rest of the show progresses, but we can move forward now knowing that maybe Scully at this point is almost having enough with it. And maybe this conversation tipped the scales and like, okay, I want to stick with this. That's just conjecture. I'm just saying whether it was meant to or not, for me, I think it helps cement their friendship in getting to know just a little bit more about what drives Mulder and how he views things rather than just, okay, well, this week we're going to go on this crazy adventure. So now there's something for fans of the show to kind of latch onto. Both the viewer and Scully can kind of understand Mulder just a little bit more.
I'll get on board with that logic. I will say, though, that it's not going to stop them from creating episodes where they pit Scully against Mulder or vice versa.
Absolutely not.
It's not like this is going to permanently make them allies and they'll always trust each other and they're the bestest of friends because they had this shared experience.
No, and that's not what I meant.
They will completely toss this backstory out the window if it serves the plot. And to its discredit, we have often looked at those episodes and went, how could she believe that of him when they've had all this stuff happen to them in the past? Have they completely forgotten about their time on the rock or, any other number of situations?
Right.
So as a whole, the series doesn't really stand together very well because they will allow the exceptions to break the rules. But in this moment, it's perfect and I'm happy with it.
Yeah, it's a great scene. Gave all the shippers something to chew on, and it gave just normal fans like you and me something to chew on. Don't say anything.
We're both normal fans, exactly the same.
We are exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
So after the shippers climax, there's an appropriate splash nearby, and the agents rise alerted. To their surprise, it's Dr. Faraday walking along the shoreline. He thought he heard something as he was walking by, and this catches them off guard. The shore is just a stone's throw away, and he offers to take them back. Little time passes. The sheriff will be by shortly. Faraday would take them himself, but he's working. Night is the most active period for the Ranus sphennocephala, and this is their breeding ground. Where thousands of eggs used to cling to these reeds, few remain. Their populations are fastly dwindling. Faraday has a sack of adult frogs. He's been breeding them in captivity and releasing them back into the wild. Surprised, Scully asks if this is Stryker's Cove. Here, Mulder gets an epiphany. It's the frogs. It's the food chain. If you alter one life form in an ecosystem, the rest is necessarily affected, either by an increase or decrease. So if an aquatic dinosaur's diet consisted primarily of frogs, then if those frogs suddenly became scarce, it would have to turn to an alternative food source. And Scully fills in the blank, humans. Faraday still does not appreciate his research being used to validate this theory, and Mulder insists that the creature lives here in this cove. When Faraday asks why he hasn't seen it, Mulder just says it's a prehistoric animal that's gone unnoticed for thousands of years. It knows how to hide. The sheriff comes over to inform them of another death, an animal attack. Bit a fisherman's arm clean off on the other side of the lake. They're sending men to look there now, but Mulder demands he leave some with him in Stryker's Cove. The sheriff declines. The attack was over there, and that's where they're headed. And despite Mulder's best efforts, he refuses.
Bravo.
Out of pity for her partner, Scully gently asks the sheriff to spare one or two men here, and he relents. Aww.
See, what they did there They've removed all the cops so that now they're forced to deal with the problem themselves.
Yep. And of course, Mulder's right.
His superpower
Strikers
has
Co.
worked.
This is the home base for Big Blue.
Ground zero for Big Blue.
Yep. Just a short ways away, they hear Faraday screaming. When they investigate, he has collapsed near a tree. Something grabbed his leg. He didn't see it. It just grabbed him from behind, shook him back and forth. Scully uses his belt to create a tourniquet. Faraday seems to be coming around to Mulder's theory at this point. I didn't want to believe you. He points to some reeds and says it went through there. Mulder asks Scully to watch him, grabs his gun, and heads off into the woods. With his flashlight, he scans around, searching, ready to fire at anything. When nothing appears to be around, he suddenly hears snapping wood nearby and is rushed by something. It's fast. He trains his gun on it and fires at seemingly nothing as low branches are being torn down. When he decides to run, he turns, but his foot catches on a root and he falls to the ground. He twists back to continue firing again and again until his clip empties. The attack stops. A moment passes, and then we cut to a bloodied alligator head riddled with bullets, dead, right before him.
And I think there's an add-in where he says, alligator.
Alligator. Yeah, he does kind of.
And I'm sure that they
exasperated.
Didn't say that in the moment. I think that they dropped that in after.
Alligator.
Alligator. Of course, Mulder runs off on his own, leaving his partner behind.
Yep.
And there is, of course, the old sneaky camera, of the showing the POV
tracking
of the monster sneaking up behind Mulder.
Yep. Something they use plenty in this episode.
Well, they use it plenty through the entire series, but yeah, they use it here.
I think this is the fourth time.
In this episode?
Third or fourth. Yeah, in this episode.
Yeah.
Back with Scully and everyone else, Faraday is loaded into an ambulance. He'll be fine. She congratulates Mulder on slaying his big, bad whale. But he's a little sullen. She doesn't understand. The alligator would have surely gone through the population if he hadn't killed it, which illuminates exactly Mulder's motivations. He doesn't so much care that people are dying. He cares about what the creature isn't.
It was just an alligator?
Oh man. Well, I mean, cool people aren't going to die, but
solve the problem, sure, but just an alligator.
That's not why we're here.
That's right.
I wanted to see something cool. He stares out at the lake, claiming he wanted Big Blue to be real. He sees hope in such a possibility, and Scully plays into it a little. That's why these myths and stories have endured. People want to believe. Scully heads out, and Mulder continues to look out at the dark lake wistfully. After a few moments, he too turns away to leave, and with one more glance at the lake, we see a still water. And after a moment, the creature lifts its long neck to watch the agents leave, then it dives down deep into the water with a quiet slosh. Credits.
If they'd only
he
been
had
in the
just
right
stayed
place at the right time, he would have.
Oh, Mulder, turn around. Turn around.
Yeah, classic.
What I like about that is that we are led to believe by the time the episode ends that it is just the alligator.
Yeah.
And then they kind of pull the rug out. And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Well, and it's funny, I just rewatched it and I'd forgotten that perfect twist at the end. The point being that in the moment as the alligator is revealed, you then hearken back to the other animal attacks and think, well, an alligator couldn't have pulled the snorkeler like that. It couldn't have pulled the sheriff in like that. Yeah, so does that make sense? So yeah, it is a mix between Big Blue and the alligator doing all the attacks. And in that sense, they've carefully thought about the structure of the script, like what animals are where and when and why. And it's very smart.
Awesome. Yeah. So Andrew, that is Quagmire.
It is.
Do you have final thoughts?
I don't have a lot of final thoughts. This is a perilously short bunch of notes for me because, as usual, it's so good. It's hard to pick it apart. I would argue it's one of the best Monster of the Week episodes. It's like the Darren Morgan episode that wasn't. As you suggest, I'm sure he had a hand somewhere, but it's still Kim Newton's episode. Like it has, It has dialogue with depth in it that you never found in a Darren Morgan episode. Like the scene on the rock is not Darren Morgan. It could never have been Darren Morgan, but it is so good at capturing those characters. It is, well, it's obviously the reason that this episode's so popular with a certain demographic. The other takeaway I have.
Who?
What's that?
I said who?
Who? The other takeaway I have is the idea of the plan to get to the resolution and how it's always high-minded. You know, we're going to search for the unknown, but there's just this naivete of what you're going to do when you get there. And in Mulder's case, the search for the unknown, the response is to shoot it to death. You know? It's so
Kill it.
Oh, it's like, okay, I can't reason with this thing. We're going to kill it. Like, imagine if you found the Sasquatch, you know, Bigfoot is one of his favorite videos that he watches. Like if he actually ran into it, you know, in a dark alley, he'd probably end up having to shoot it to death. So, I don't know. They didn't need to delve into a plan of what they were going to do. That's maybe where the comparison between Jaws and this episode varies, because in Jaws they had a plan. You know, they knew what they were going to try and do. They were going to try and go out there and kill it. It was pretty clear. In this, it was like they wanted to find it, and that is, you know, something that they were going to encounter again in Detour, and probably other episodes. But it's delightfully innocent. You know, this idea that we can see it and document it, and they even spell it out for us, right? It's twice. Don't turn your back on nature, or she'll turn her back on you. And on the rock, you have is it Scully saying, or no, it's probably Mulder saying, respect nature because it has no respect for you. So they tell you that
Scully.
It is Scully, yeah. They tell you you are in dangerous territory, and unless you go in prepared, you are going to get messed up. So those elements stand out for me, but otherwise, just an amazing episode and well worth the time.
Yeah, this is one of those episodes that you need to watch even if you're just scanning through the show. This is one that you always land on. Definitely not a skip. The dialogue itself is well worth your time for admission or the cost of admission. And it's a great script by Kim. And I think it's a shame she didn't get to do more. I would have liked to see more, as I said at the beginning of the episode. So this episode, all the right punches for me, aesthetically, dialogue, relationship between the agents, the progression or the seemingly visible progression of their friendship just really helps me a lot for the show. And I think it's one of those benchmarks where, okay, this is the next step. They've had this moment that, you know, is forever cemented in the show, so that moving forward, you know, maybe their relationship has a little bit more clout, their friendship and trust. Again, not unwavering, but still. Well, there you go. Right at the end, story editor, Darren Morgan.
Oh, there it is.
So there it is.
Yeah, to get to the end, you had to go full circle. No, I won't do it again.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to go swiftly into listener comments. Amy Nicole Gonzalez says, okay, a few things. Quagmire was the first episode I sat down on purpose to watch live when it aired.
Wow.
Previously, my dad had called me into the room to watch Grotesque because he thought I would really like it, in quotes.
Not a great episode to start with.
No, that's quite a...
Yeah.
This was when X-Files was still on Friday nights before it moved to Sundays, and he said, "This show is on again." I didn't really know the characters at all. I didn't know the dynamic of them or even how the show normally went, but I was captivated from the start. As a shipper, I didn't have the backstory.
Very nice.
Yeah,
okay.
Self-identified. Wear it on your sleeves. Nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
As a shipper, I didn't have the backstory to think anything about them on the rock other than their chemistry was undeniable, and so was the flirting. Not at one single point did I consider that conversation platonic, and from day one of watching live every week, I was waiting to see if they would ever get together, literally based on this rock scene. Looking back now, it was just a fairly normal banter between the two of them up until this episode, but the longer the episodes went on, the more and more flirty the banter got. I look at the rock scene less as super flirty and more as two friends having a genuine moment, realizing their wits and intellect match and throwing in a little flirt because why not? They are both hot. Laugh out loud. However, when you watch seasons 1 and 2 before that, it's clear there are feelings there. I hadn't seen any of that, so all I went off of was based on this one rock, and man, it hooked me.
Wow.
Excellent comment. And that actually goes into what I was saying about the genuine moment between the two agents. Not so much flirty as it is just a moment between peers.
And did you see how she looped that in at the end with the hooking reference? It hooked her. A little angling
hooked.
Reference. And
There you go.
Bring it back to Quagmire. Very nice. Deep on
That's
a variety
awesome.
of levels.
Yep. Excellent
Yeah.
comment.
Excellent comment. Yeah. Emily Messenger said that, yes, without a doubt, Mulder is the reason for Queequeg's demise. The conversation on the rock probably is overblown by us shippers. Oh, also self-identifying. But it's just so nice to see them forced into a conversation after the season 3 on and off rift between them that started back in Nice. I mostly enjoy the scene, but I will say that ever since I first saw this as a kid, I don't love that Scully compares Mulder to her dad with the Ahab line. I called my dad Ahab, followed very shortly by "You're Ahab." It kind of makes me cringe. Maybe the two of them can get a group discount on the daddy issue therapy. Truer words.
Yikes. Throw Skinner in on that.
They've all got some stuff they got to work through. They are
Yeah.
deep and complex characters.
Yikes.
Yikes.
Yeah, I didn't put that together.
No, neither did
Oof.
I. That's
Icky.
well,
Well, we know what she's doing at the end
Yeah.
of season 5. Anyway, no,
Anyway.
great comments. Awesome.
Very nice. Thank you for contributing those. It brings
Yes.
us joy.
Well, Andrew, there isn't a whole lot more to say about this excellent episode.
Shall we turn the ship around, go back to harbor,
Let us, yes, get off the boat.
coil the
Head-
lines,
Yeah, let's coil the lines,
batten down the hatches?
batten down the hatch.
Yeah.
Yes.
Give the deposit
All right.
back.
Would you, sir, like to say a few parting words?
Valued listeners, thank you for your time. We understand that you have lots of other podcasts you listen to, and we are pleased that you choose to spend your ear time with us. So we look forward to speaking into your ears next time when we are ready to end season 3. Mike, are you excited?
I am very excited. Couple more weeks, ladies and gentlemen.
It's all going to be done in season 3, and then our top 3, bottom 3 tradition, I'm sure, will be continued.
Yeah, get those opinions ready because we're going to be asking you for the worst episodes you guys want, or your top 3 worst episodes. And I would love to see what really hits the top of the poll, because I gotta say this season is a banger.
there's a
and
lot.
even the bad ones
Yeah.
are still enjoyable. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm looking
Well, I
forward to
guess
that.
taste. I don't know.
Good
Okay,
night,
I'm going to
everybody.
throw this out there.
Oh, okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, since Andrew and I have decided we're not allowed to pick Darren Morgan episodes for the best of, since it's a ringer,
Yeah.
it's a given.
Yeah.
I say you can't choose Teso dos Bichos
Oh, that's a good
as
point,
the
too.
worst, because that's
That's
likely
also a ringer,
the
too.
winner.
Yeah. I like that.
Do us a favor and don't vote for that one. Vote for your heart outside of that. Which are the 3 worst episodes?
Well, because we are the keepers of the poll, we'll just
We
not
are.
include that one on the poll.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. All right. Well, I look forward to the next couple weeks, and I will see you guys there.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please rate and review on your podcast app of choice. Andrew and I would be eternally grateful to you fine people for helping us expand and get the word out. Also, we've got a killer group on Facebook. Feel free to join in on the discussion at facebook.com/groups/thisisnothappeningpod and become an official member of the syndicate. We do polls and we have questions for every episode to give you guys the opportunity to chime in and possibly let your voice be heard on our recordings. And please join us on our new Twitter at tinhxfilespod, no dash, to stay up to date on everything, moment to moment. Thank you, and remember, don't stop swimming.